Welcome to my channel of Gill Master Stories. Don't forget to subscribe button and press on the bell icon for more inspiration and mind-blowing stories. When security tried to kick a man off the field during a high-stakes football game, they had no idea he owned the team. What happened next shocked an entire stadium and sparked a movement that changed everything. The energy in the stadium was electric. Fans in Arlington, Texas were on their feet, roaring as their team pushed toward the playoffs. The smell of popcorn and hot dogs filled the air, and the field gleamed under the floodlights. Everything seemed to run like clockwork until it didn't. Just before halftime, a man in a sleek charcoal suit appeared on the edge of the field. He was tall, his gait steady, his posture commanding, yet he looked so out of place. No sideline pass, no team gear, no clipboard, just confidence and a suit. At first the crowd didn't pay much attention, but when two security guards began marching toward him, the buzz of the game shifted. It was subtle at first, a few glances, then murmurs on the jumbo screen. Cameras caught a glimpse of the man, his calm face contrasting with the guard's urgency. "Hey, you can't be here," one of the guards shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. The man stopped, hands slipping into his pockets. "Unbothered, I'm here for business," he replied, his tone cool but not confrontational. "Business, not without a pass," the second guard snapped, motioning for him to leave. "Step back behind the barricade now." The man didn't flinch. Instead, he gestured toward the bench, his expression unreadable. "That's my business." The guards weren't having it. One reached for his radio, calling for backup. Fans in the front row leaned forward, sensing something unusual was unfolding. Players on the bench exchanged glances, unsure of who the man was, but wary of the escalating tension. The man shifted his weight slightly, but held his ground. "I don't need a pass," he said firmly. "You're making a mistake." The crowd grew restless as more security staff approached. The murmurs turned into whispers, speculation rippling through the stands like wildfire. What was about to happen next would silence the entire stadium. The guards flanked the man now, their voices growing louder as they gestured for him to leave. The scene unfolding in full view of thousands was impossible to ignore. Whistles and cheers from the game faded as people turned their attention to the commotion on the sidelines. "Sir, this is your last warning," one guard said, his hand inching toward the radio clipped to his shoulder. "You need to leave immediately or we'll escort you out." The man remained composed. His voice was calm but resolute. "Escort me? Do you know who I am?" The question seemed to enrage the guards further. "We don't care who you are," the other guard snapped. "Rules are rules." From the sidelines, players and staff began to notice the standoff. A few assistant coaches exchanged confused looks. One of the wide receivers, mid-conversation with a teammate, froze and squinted toward the man. "Is that?" he muttered, trailing off. The man didn't raise his voice or lose his cool. Instead, he pulled his phone from his pocket and began scrolling. "I think you'll want to reconsider," he said, holding up the screen. But before he could show them, one of the guards grabbed his arm. The gesture caused a collective gasp from the crowd. A ripple of discomfort spread as fans leaned forward in their seats. Phones went up, recording the unfolding drama. "Let go," the man said firmly, his voice carrying a warning enough. The guard tightened his grip, pulling the man a step backward. The man planted his feet, refusing to budge. By now the stadium cameras had turned their lenses toward the scene, broadcasting it across the massive jumbotron. "What's going on over there?" boomed the voice of the announcer. Breaking the tension on the field, the head coach stepped closer to the sidelines, his brow furrowed as he took in the scene. And then recognition dawned. His face blanched. "Stop," the coach barked, waving his arms toward the guards. "Let him go." The guards froze, confused. The coach moved quickly, weaving through the crowd of players and staff, until he was face to face with the man. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm so sorry," he stammered, his voice low but urgent. The guards exchanged bewildered looks. "Mr. Caldwell," one of them repeated the name, barely audible over the growing chatter of the crowd. "Yes," the coach said, turning to the guards. "This is our team's new majority owner." The words hit like a bolt of lightning. The crowd, the guards, the players, everyone froze. The guards' faces turned pale as they slowly stepped back, their grip loosening. Owner. One of them whispered, his voice cracking. The man adjusted his jacket, brushing off his sleeves as though nothing had happened. "That's right," he said, looking directly at the guards. "I own this team." A wave of shock rippled through the crowd. Gasps, whispers, and murmurs filled the stadium. On the jumbotron, the man's face filled the screen. His calm expression, a stark contrast to the chaos erupting around him. But the moment wasn't over. It was about to take an even sharper turn. The tension in the stadium was palpable. Thousands of eyes locked on the man who had just been identified as the team's new majority owner. The energy shifted from confusion to shock, then to something heavier: discomfort. Conversations bubbled up in the stands. "Wait, he's the owner. Why didn't they recognize him? Did they think he didn't belong?" The guards stood frozen, wide-eyed and awkward. One of them stammered, We didn't know, sir. We were just doing our job." The man, now known as Mr. Caldwell, tilted his head slightly, his gaze steady but unyielding. "Doing your job," he said, his tone sharp yet measured. "Or assuming something that wasn't yours to assume." The guard opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Camera zoomed in on Caldwell's face, and his image filled the jumbotron. The crowd watched in rapt silence as he turned his attention to the players on the bench, who were now standing, some with helmets in hand. Caldwell's expression softened as he addressed the coach. "Thank you for stepping in," he said, offering a brief nod of acknowledgement. "But this moment isn't just about me. It's about what just happened and why it happened." The coach nodded silently, stepping aside to give Caldwell the floor. Slowly, Caldwell turned back to the guards. "I'm not angry," he said, his voice calm but piercing. "But I am disappointed, not just in you, but in how often this happens to people who look like me." The statement landed heavily, drawing a mix of gasps and murmurs from the audience. Some fans nodded in agreement, while others sat back uncomfortable in their seats. One of the guards attempted to apologize again, but Caldwell raised a hand. "No need for excuses. I'd rather we talk about the lesson here," he said firmly, and with that, he began walking toward the center of the field, where all eyes were already glued to him. Mr. Caldwell stepped onto the center of the field, the overhead lights casting a commanding glow around him. The roar of the stadium had quieted to a hum of hushed voices. Even the players huddled by the sidelines turned their full attention to him. He had no microphone, but his presence was so magnetic that his voice carried effortlessly through the air. "I didn't come here to make a scene," he began, his voice steady, calm, "but I also didn't expect to be made into one." The silence in the stadium deepened. Phones were raised across the stands, capturing every word. Caldwell's gaze swept across the sea of faces. "What happened just now wasn't just about me," he continued, gesturing to the guards, who stood frozen near the sidelines. "It's about something bigger, a mindset, a habit of making assumptions about who belongs and who doesn't." A ripple of agreement moved through parts of the crowd, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "You didn't recognize me," Caldwell said, addressing the guards directly, "because I didn't look like what you expected. And I could stand here and let that pass as a simple mistake. But if I did that, what would I be teaching my players? What would I be teaching my fans?" The crowd listened intently. Caldwell's words were heavy with meaning, but his delivery was smooth, like he was speaking to each individual in the stadium. "You see, assumptions are dangerous," he continued. "They don't just cause moments of embarrassment. They perpetuate barriers. They send messages that some people don't belong, when in reality, it's the barriers that don't belong." Caldwell paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle over the crowd. A few fans began clapping, the sound hesitant but growing. "This team, this game, this stadium, they represent something bigger than football," he said, his voice growing stronger. "They represent unity, a place where skill, dedication, and passion bring people together. And I'm proud to own this team, not because of what it adds to my portfolio, but because of what it means to break those barriers." Down applause began to spread through the stadium, hesitant at first but quickly building. Caldwell raised his hand again, quieting the noise. "I didn't come here to play the victim," he said firmly. "I came here to teach a lesson. One we all need to hear: never let someone's appearance dictate how you treat them. Not on this field, not in this stadium, not in this world." The crowd erupted in cheers, a thunderous roar of support that echoed throughout the stadium. Caldwell nodded once, then turned to the guards. "And I hope after tonight, you'll carry that lesson with you too." The guards, visibly shaken, nodded back, their faces a mix of embarrassment and relief. Caldwell extended his hand to each of them, offering a firm handshake. The gesture was both graceful and symbolic, a public act of reconciliation. But the story wasn't over yet. This was only the spark that would ignite a much larger conversation. The applause lingered long after Mr. Caldwell left the field, returning to his seat in the owner's box. On the Jumbotron, the cameras followed him, and the crowd couldn't take their eyes off him. The incident had shifted the energy of the entire stadium. What started as a tense misunderstanding had become a moment of reckoning and inspiration. By the time the game ended, social media was already ablaze. Clips of the confrontation and Caldwell's speech flooded every platform, racking up millions of views within hours. Hashtags like #Who belongs here and Caldwell lesson began trending, sparking debates and discussions that spilled far beyond the world of sports. The next morning, news outlets dissected every moment. Some praised Caldwell for his grace and composure, calling it a masterclass in leadership. Others criticized the guards, demanding accountability for what many saw as an act of racial profiling. But Caldwell wasn't interested in fueling division. Instead, he released a statement that went viral for its simplicity and power. "Last night wasn't about shaming anyone. It was about learning and teaching. I hope we all remember that what we assume about others says more about us than it does about them. Let's do better together." The statement struck a chord with in-day sports organizations, businesses, and even schools began using his speech as a teaching tool. Workshops on unconscious bias sprang up, with Caldwell's story at the center. Even the guards involved in the incident came forward, issuing public apologies. Caldwell met with them privately, ensuring their growth was part of the narrative. "We're all learning," he said during a televised interview. "The important thing is that we're willing to." Meanwhile, Caldwell's story inspired deeper conversations. Within the league itself, owners, coaches, and players began to reflect on their own biases and how they could work toward inclusivity, not just on the field, but in boardrooms, hiring practices, and outreach efforts. But the most profound impact was seen in the fans. Letters poured in from across the country, some sharing their own stories of feeling out of place, others thanking Caldwell for speaking up. One letter stood out. It came from a young boy in Arkansas who wrote, "I love football, but sometimes I don't feel like I fit in because I look different from my teammates. After seeing what you did, I feel proud to be me. Thank you for showing that we all belong." Caldwell shared the letter during a press conference, his voice thick with emotion. "This is why I did it," he said, holding the letter up for all to see, "because no one should ever feel like they don't belong." The moment had grown beyond the stadium, beyond football. It was now a movement, and it wasn't slowing down. Months after the incident, the impact of Mr. Caldwell's actions was still reverberating. The team, inspired by their owner's leadership, launched an initiative called Game of Belonging, a campaign focused on inclusivity in sports. And community outreach workshops were held in schools, youth leagues, and even corporate offices, teaching the importance of judging people by their character, not their appearance. Caldwell himself became a sought-after speaker, not just in the sports world, but in spaces that needed his message the most. He never leaned into anger or resentment. Instead, he used his story to build bridges. "Assumptions are walls," he often said, "but awareness is the sledgehammer that breaks them down." The guards from that night became an unexpected part of the movement. Both participated in several of the workshops, speaking openly about their experience and the lessons they'd learned. I didn't realize how quick I was to judge, one of them admitted in a televised interview. But Mr. Caldwell taught me something that night. Now I'm teaching others what I learned. The stadium, where it all happened, also became a symbol of change. A plaque was installed just outside the main entrance, engraved with Caldwell's words, "Never let someone's appearance dictate how you treat them." Fans often stopped to take pictures with it, many of them sharing their own reflections on how the story had touched them. The most significant moment came during the team's playoff run that same season, before the opening game. Mr. Caldwell was invited to the center of the field to address the crowd once more. This time there was no misunderstanding, no hesitation. The cheers were deafening as he stepped up to the microphone. The stadium, now a sea of fans, united under one message. "Tonight isn't about football," Caldwell began, his voice carrying effortlessly across the packed arena. "It's about what this sport and this world can be when we stop seeing differences as barriers and start seeing them as strengths. Remember, you belong." We all do. The crowd erupted in applause, and the players took the field with a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just a game anymore, it was a statement. As the team fought for victory that night, the lessons Caldwell had shared echoed far beyond the stadium walls. His message wasn't just about belonging on the field. It was about belonging everywhere. And so the story leaves us with a challenge. What assumptions are we holding on to? And how can we break them down? Remember, change starts with us. Let's carry that lesson forward. If this story resonated with you, don't let it stop here. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's commit to seeing people for who they truly are, not what we expect them to be. And if you believe in creating a world where everyone feels like they belong, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. For more content, please leave your comments and share your experiences. Thank you for being part of Gill Master Stories community. See you soon. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire, challenge, and unite us all.